Morning, Bob Murphy here. This is the third of my background videos. The first background video was a kind of job life that informed some of my math finance teaching. The second part was that 80%. Most of my life was spent in the bottom 80% personal income and household income. And that impacted how I went after this math finance stuff. Now, the third thing is what I did as a math teacher. And so some quick statistics: 17 years as a high school math teacher, 16 in Seattle. 14 of those years before COVID, we were teaching 5 classes a day. I was basically responsible for 5 classes a day, 180 days a year. 5 times 180 is 900 classes a year. Times 14 years is a hell of a lot of classes, over 10,000 classes. I was slated for about 32 kids per class. I don't know. I had 36. I had 27. Even at 30 kids a class, times 5 classes a day, that's 150 kids a day. I've had thousands of students on my roster. Okay, so part of teaching, there's this thing called instructional practices. Those of you who are teachers will be familiar with that phrase. And instructional practices are like the mechanics. Here are good things to do in class to make sure this class is successful for as many kids as you can get. And these instructional practices, now, I'm an old white guy. My school is 8% white. The best practices for me are going to be different for a 25-year-old white guy, a 25-year-old white female, a 25-year-old Black female, a 25-year-old Asian female, and the kind of person they are. So instructional practices, best practices vary really by, and then is it an honors class with really cutthroat, aggressive learners? Everybody wants that. Or is it honors because their parents made them be there? Or is it just that other part of the population, regular old kids, just like, yeah, okay, I'm here. Math, not my first choice. Now, so that's some of the numbers. And I don't know about other teachers, but when I'm looking around a classroom of 30 or something, and I'm trying to explain something in a way, I'm looking for fear in the eyes, right? There's all kinds of reasons kids are tuned out. Who gives a shit about quadratic formula, right? Or their family or their girlfriend or the boyfriend or the whatever. The weather's nice, right? There's that kind of stuff you're always struggling with. But then there's like, what did he just do? Okay. So I want to minimize the, out in space stuff, but I'm really looking for fear. Like, I'm lost. I don't know what's going on. I don't want that to happen. I want my kids to get what's going on. Now, oh crap. Unbelievable. All right. So there's that kind of background stuff. Now, over 5 of those years, I taught juniors and seniors who were not in the honors track. And so they were still trying. They were still there. But, oh boy, for a lot of them, it was just very tangential. And so I wanted to make sure, like, let's get some skills. Now, in my prior videos, I talked about the skills, especially in the job thing. So some stuff I want to take a look at in this fight that I had about skills. There's some stuff I got to look at. I want you to take a quick look at. And I'm at a web page right now. Let me roll all the way up. Washington Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction. I know you can read, but okay. So these are state results for what the hell was year? Well, it shows down here it was 2021, 2022. So these are tests that were given last year. I had 5 classes of sophomores. That's 10th graders. This test was given last year. Now, in the state of Washington, there were 1 million students last year. The 10th graders that took the test, the statewide test, only 37.7% met the math standard. And I don't know what the hell this growth thing is, whatever. Now, what percentage of students met grade level standards? Okay. And I got to roll down in here because I talked about the bottom 80%. Well, look at this. Programs and characteristics, low income math, 21% of students. All right. So during the 2021-22, 274 low-income students were expected to take the math smarter assessments. Only 21%, 21.4% met the highest, passed for their grade level. All right. Okay, so that's more than, okay. Well, I'm not going to get into this too much detail. It's not the point. What I'm really looking at is non-low income. Okay. And of course, the freaking phone is. Now, non-low income. Look at their pass rate. 53%, 21% versus 53%. All right. Something's not working for the low income kids. And this is 290,000 non-low income. So 274 versus 290. I'm not talking about low income kids as some little subset, 1 out of 20. I'm talking in the state of Washington, it's almost half of our kids in our public schools are low income. Yikes. How the hell did that happen? Yeah. Anyway, now, all right, I got to stop share because now my high school that I worked with about 9, 10, 11, depending on part-timers and such, different teachers per year at my high school. And our school, if you were to look back the data years and years ago and currently, we've tended to do a lot better than the state average when it comes to free and reduced lunch, low income kids passing these tests. We tend to do better. Now, the teachers I worked with, we've had some hellish good fights and disagreements or, whatever, about these instructional practices. But for the most part, we recognize that different teaching styles help different kids. You're in high school for 4 years. You've got 5 different math teachers. I mean, they're not all grouchy guys like me, old guys like me. Now I'm looking at, but here's some things about this data. In 2009, it was my 4th year of being a high school math teacher, trying to help kids with problems in math, problems that were supposed to address higher order thinking and critical thinking, problems that were not thrill and kill or rote thinking, right? And I'm helping kids, and their basics suck. I mean, they really 9 over 12, 8 over 12, 18 out of 24, 16 out of 24. Ooh, huge mystery. Now, honestly, one of the main reasons for that is because they've had teachers that go, oh, that's rote learning. That's rote learning. That's not higher order thinking. Well, remember my job interview? My job background. Okay. One thing I was trying to talk about that, I hope I succeeded in, is emphasizing that, we got 330 million people in this country. We got 158 million people working. We have 5 million working in computers. We got, was it 11 or 14 million as cooks? All over the place. There's people that take a long time to get really good with basics so they can do harder stuff really well. The better they are with the basics, the better they can do with the harder stuff. And for some reason, math world has just been turned into this like, oh, we'll all be Einstein, and I always ask my kids every class, are you Einstein? No. I said, you know why you're not Einstein? No. Because he's dead. Ha! You can't be somebody who's dead. All right. Look, just practice. You can get better. And I get disparaged as an old, grouchy white guy. I learned something in the 60s and I'm not going to give it up. And I don't want to change. And I don't want this new stuff. Yeah. Okay. Whatever. Now, I'm looking at my notes, make sure I don't miss a tirade here. Here's the thing. When I testified in May or spring of 2009 against Seattle Public Schools adopting these Discovery math textbooks, one data set that I used was the pass rate of low-income kids versus non-low-income kids. And I was using a study from the state of Washington. Now, this is the study was from 2008. It was on 10th graders in 2007. So these 10th graders in 2007 are going to graduate in 2009. And at the time of this study, it was 35% of the low-income kids had passed the state standards, and 60% of non-low income had passed the state standards. Okay. And the state standards at that time had been written deliberately for this test that these kids bombed on. They were given a decade. The state said, okay, they got to learn according to these standards for a decade before we can legitimately test them on it. And in 2006 was the first time, it was 2006. I'm sorry. That was the first time that 10th graders had to pass the test to graduate. Over 30,000 out of 80,000 failed the math part. Holy shit, hit the fan. Anyway, and here we are. We have these different standards now. Common Core, they were adopted about 9, 8, 10 years ago. It was just a rewrite. You take all these big words for what is called an exponential function, and you put all this, you take all the old bullshit, you put a bunch of new bullshit on it. But at the end of the day, kids that can't do fractions and division and multiplication with exponential functions are going to really have a hard time. They're going to have a hard time with all kinds of math stuff. All right. Now, and I remember early in my career trying to help kids with these complex critical thinking problems. And there'd be 3 or 4 basic skills in there that the kids were horrible at, each of these basic skills. And now here, I'm going to tell you something that I told my kids. When we use the word basic in math, too often it's used in a very contemptuous, like, that's basic. Now that's basic, right? It's used in a kind of a disparaging way. Well, the fact is a lot of the basics in math took humans thousands and hundreds of years to boil down to this really kind of simple thing, but kind of not simple. Like you take a lot of simple things and put them together, it's not simple anymore. So a lot of the stuff that's basic that you can learn in 2nd and 3rd and 4th and 5th grade and 6th grade with the enough practice, they didn't get the practice because there's all these people that disparage practice. How the hell are we going to, I didn't look at the number of plumbers in that job life thing. I didn't look at the number of plumbers, but I mean, look at what happened in COVID. We had all these grocery store workers that were termed essential, forced to go to work, had everybody coughing and sneezing on them, no freaking masks, no vaccines. These are people that need to know kind of basic shit like what percentage of the store is given to dairy, what percentage of the square feet in the store are given to fruit and vegetables, the percent of the store that's given over to fruit and vegetables, what percent of that section is given to oranges and apples and bananas versus lettuces and bok choy. Of the lettuce and bok choy and parsley, what percent is given to the parsley versus the percents of percents of percents. It's fact. It's just part of life. Why do we got to disparage this stuff? Oh, I know. So you can feel better. Oh, isn't that cool? Now, all right. So anyway, these struggles in the classroom, trying to figure out my coworkers and where they're coming from. Boy, that actually kept me digging around in the that employment by occupation and industry. That kept me digging around in the income by household. And I ended up doing some stuff which, oh well, look at this. Privilege subsidies by the thousands. I'll tell you what, let me get to the point. Too many of the people in education policy, including math education policy, are from the top 50%. I think if sociology, I don't know if anybody in sociology does this stuff. Like they look at the policy people in housing and medical care, in education. How many of those policy people who are making in the top 20% and have been doing it for over 10 years, how many of them come from that top 20% background? I guarantee you, how many come from the top 50%? Because I'm in my 60s. I'm looking at Ronald Reagan ran against the government 43 years ago, and people still haven't figured out how the hell to beat him. Why can't we make shit work? I mean, but when you're looking at policy people who got out of college and didn't have a ton of debt, maybe they got a 3-year-old car from granny with low mileage on it. They didn't have to worry about healthcare insurance. They got subsidies for their housing. And I'm not criticizing those people. Okay. If you're going to get, oh, he's attacking me. Okay. No, I'm not. But when you have that kind of stuff and then you're making policy for the people at the bottom 50%, you kind of don't know what the fuck their life is about. Okay. Bada-bing. Now we can go through numbers forever, but that's the bottom line. And I keep looking at this stuff I had to deal with in Seattle, and I kept thinking, like, where does this come from? What happened to cause this? Well, how did this happen? And this is the best I could come up with. Now, I'll give credit. Some of my teacher training in Seattle was about privilege, and I kind of checked it out. I mean, I just was like, oh, for Christ's sake, I can't even take this stuff, because we never talked about money. Because, money's evil and money's the root of all evil. And if you have $100 bill, your head will blow up. And Jesus Christ. So anyway, I focus on let's practice, let's get good with basics. I want people to get good with money and with these interest rate formulas. And hopefully these last 3 videos kind of gave you a sense. If I ever turn into the big influencer dude, well, I have to redo these videos. I'll make them a lot more concise. The rants will be more precise. But to this higher order thinking crowd that criticizes the rote, who are talking about critical thinking, look at your fucking results, okay? Look at the results of these tests for the last 20 years. Oh, the tests don't count. Okay, whatever. Now, there's a reason to scapegoat me in my old style. There's a good reason. You're some Machiavellian double thinker out on, out on the limb, out on the edge, and you got to make sure like nobody goes after your job. All right, I mean, isn't that Trump and Mitch McConnell? They're different politically than you, but it's the same behavior. But here's the thing: you're standing on this pedestal, going, "I'm training the future citizens of democracy," and you're screwing poor kids. All right, and then your solution is to blame me. Yeah, read between the lines, huh? Bob out. All right. And now we're back to the mystery of stopping all this crap.